So hello and welcome back to the FPL Talk channel, and today we're taking a look at even more prices that have been announced. We're getting 5 new teams pretty much every day, and today we've got some big ones. We've got Chelsea, and we're also going to take a look at Liverpool yesterday and some other players who I'm very interested in putting in my Game Week 1 team. And get in the comments which ones that you have seen so far are you interested in. So without further ado, we'll get right into it. So with these new prices, we had Chelsea today, and Mason Mount for 8 million is a bit of a interesting one. Personally, it's not what I'm going to go for. I just feel like around that evaluation there is better options such as Saka for 8 million, and also for 0.5 million more you have Jared Bowen, whose numbers were far superior to Mount's last year. I mean, if Chelsea have good fixtures, then Mason Mount looks always to be like a nailed on starter sort of things, even though he wasn't playing as many games last year. But this season he could prove me wrong and be far better. But personally for me, I'm not going to go for Mason Mount simply because of the options that are elsewhere. Moving on, we also had Reece James that was announced today. Now, 6 million for Reece James is actually a bit of a bargain, I think. You can have Trent for 7.5 and Reece James for 6. And Reece James looks to be a nailed-on player, and we've seen last season he can also get attacking returns. And Chelsea, if they can sign some centre-backs, should be able to keep a lot of clean sheets this season. And 6 million for me seems like a very good price. If you look at 6 million midfielders, I always say if you compare midfielders and attackers to defenders, defenders get far superior returns for the price they are compared to players going forward. And for 6 million, I think he's going to get far more returns than people in midfield and attack. So he could be definitely one that you're looking at. However, if we do carry on now, you also have, the only issue with this is you also have Mendy, who is 5 million. Now, a lot of people are saying that's an absolute bargain, and I would have to agree. 5 million for Mendy is an incredible price, and if you want to put him in your goal, it would not shock me. You could even add a 5 million keeper with a 4.5 million keeper or a 4 million keeper, depending on how you want to distribute your money. These come at the same price as Ramsdale and Jose Sarr, which actually shocks me, but considering I think Chelsea will be very solid defensively, as I say, if they get some centre-backs this season. And he is definitely one that you could put in that team. Also, we have Havertz, who's moved to a forward for 8 million, which is a bit off-putting, but selling Lukaku, Havertz's best numbers have been in that striker position. And if he can get some returns this season early on, he might be one I could look at transferring in. And we've also got Timo Werner there, who's also a forward, and he's not really one I'm going to be looking at. If Raheem Sterling moves to Chelsea, though, for 10.5 million, I think he was, I'll be very interested in that, just because he's a very underrated player, and he does produce good stats each season. And in a Chelsea team that are predominantly focused on those winger plays with the overlapping fullbacks, they play as more inside forward, so he could be one that could get many goals. And as we skipped a minute ago, you also have Ben Chilwell for 6 million, Reece James and Chilwell at the same price. But personally, unless Alonso leaves Chelsea, I would favour Reece James simply because there's a higher rotational risk with Chilwell and Alonso over Reece James, simply because Tuchel does not trust Hudson-Odoi as much as he trusts Alonso, and that means the left side's a bit more of a risk-taking situation than on the right. So out of Chelsea, I'm really only looking at Mendy and James. Let me know in the comments which ones are you looking at, and without further ado, let's take a look at some other prices. So as I said before, with some West Ham assets that we got today, people were saying Jared Bowen was a bit overpriced. You've got to remember the numbers that he did get last year, and if West Ham can make a few more signings, he could be very reliable. But, you know, again, you've got that players around that mark like Saka, who you could also get, and he was just as good last year. And Arsenal have majorly strengthened due to their financial strength. So it'll be interesting to see what people go for. But Jared Bowen is one you could have. I think, again, he's going to be one of those fixture-dependent players, whereas if they get a nice run of fixtures, people will bring him in, and then when he doesn't, they'll take him straight out. He's not one that you can have for longevity over every fixture. One West Ham asset I do want to speak about that takes my interest is Vladimir Coufal. Now, for 4.5 million, I think that's an absolute bargain. Last season, for us, he wasn't as good because he was carrying a long-term injury that was affecting his game. And if you saw the first season he was hit, it was absolutely class. I remember his debut versus Leicester. He was very, very good. And this long-term injury that he's been struggling with obviously was hindering his play. But he did manage to have an operation on that at the end of last season, and he should be coming back just as stronger, if not stronger, this season. So if you're going for a West Ham defender, Soufal is one I would highly recommend. And Creswell for 5 million also isn't bad. As you know, he has incredible free kick ability and he's on our set pieces. And we have big aerial presence this year. We've got Zuma, we've got Souček, and we've just signed Aguars, who's like 6'3", 6'4". So he's also a massive presence in the box. So for Newcastle, there's only 2 players I really want to talk about. First of all, we've got Bruno. Now, Bruno Guimaraes has really surprised me. At the end of last season, he was incredible. He got that cheeky chip versus Norwich, and he also got that goal that made sure Arsenal didn't get top 4. But for 6 million, it's actually a really nice price, I think. Maybe some people would expect it to be like 5.5 or 5 million, but that price is really nice. And if Newcastle can continue to strengthen and build around what they already have and become a top 10 club, he could be one to watch because, as you can see, he was very influential in their attacking play. So the other Newcastle player I'm looking at is Kieran Trippier. Now for 5 million, I think that's a bit of a bargain. When Newcastle get a nice run of fixtures, I feel like I'm going to bring him in because they've clearly strengthened defensively. They've also brought in Nick Pope at 5 million there, and they're a lot more solidified. And therefore, if I can get Kieran Trippier at 5 million, he has those high chances of getting them clean sheets. And also because he's on set pieces and free kicks, he also gives me that chance at attack and return. So the ones I'm watching from Newcastle are Kieran Trippier and Bruno Guimaraes. So yesterday we also found out the prices of the Liverpool assets. Now I wanted to say a quick few words on these. We had Mo Salah at 13 million. I'm pretty sure you have to give your arm for this one. However, it's totally worth it. He was the highest scoring FPL player last season, and he is on penalties for Liverpool. And I think you can't really argue this one. I think you've got to have him in to have any chance of keeping up with the top players in FPL. And then there's also, we had Trent at 7.5 million. Again, Robertson 7 million, but we know Trent has the higher chance of getting the attack and returns. And for 7.5 million, again, like I said with Reece James, he's going to outweigh the returns of midfielders and forwards for that price. So I'd much have him. And the third Liverpool player I'm going to go Salah, Diaz and Trent. They're all nailed on for me because Luis Diaz at 8 million. I think people were expecting him to come in at about 9.5 million, but he's actually coming at 8, which is considerably low, and I'm very happy with that. So for 8 million, he'll be going right in my team. We saw his quality last season in the Premier League, and he was able to adapt coming from Portugal really quick, and it was incredible. So he's going to be a nailed on starter with Trent and Salah for me. So the last players I want to speak about are from Manchester United. First of all, we've got Jadon Sancho for 7.5 million. Now, this is a massive price drop from last season, coming in at 7.5 million this time, rather than it was like 10.5 million last season. For me, this is an absolute bargain, I feel like. In Ten Hag's system, they predominantly play down the wings, and he's going to be very influential. And last season, he struggled to gel into the Premier League, but now he's had a year to settle. This season could be very good for him, and he's pretty much a nailed-on starter, let's be honest. With the price tag he came in at, he's pretty much nailed on. And I think we'll see what he can actually do this year. And the other player that actually surprised me was Rashford in your bottom right of that photo there. 6.5 million. That is also a bargain. If Rashford can start every game and Man United don't really sign a winger, I will definitely be looking at bringing him in if he's not in my Game Week 1 team, just because for 6.5 million in a Man United attack, you can't really refuse that. Now, as for the defenders, I'm clearly going to be staying away from that because they did struggle last year and they haven't strengthened at all this year, but they are the players that I am looking at. Who out of the players we've looked at do you think you're going to put in your Game Week 1 team? Get in the comments and let me know. If you are new here, please do subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, do leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.